Good Tuesday to you, everybody in Gov 603. Welcome to week boom 5. How you doing? Everybody hanging in there? I have a little bit of a sore throat. Maybe it's the Rona. Who knows? But I know how to take care of that and just about everything else. Delicious. Okay. We are rolling right along with this semester, week 5. What's that? About the 1/3 of the waypoint. Okay, so everybody is doing well. I've been getting some questions from you about your papers. Remember that part 1, it's not 2 papers, it's 2 parts, 1 paper, 2 parts, 1 paper. Part 1 is due this September 24th. So that's what, 5 days from now. Okay. Make sure that you read the instructions carefully. Right? That's probably, people ask, well, how do I do well on this assignment? Make sure that you understand clearly what you are and are not being asked to do. And then give yourself some time to reread and rewrite what you write. Try to write your work and then set it aside and give yourself a little bit of time away from it. And then read it again as if it were somebody else's. And one of the ways that's helpful to do that is to read it in a different format. Well, what do I mean by format? Print it out. Change the font. Use some sort of silly teenage girl write in her diary font or something that doesn't look like anything that you would use, but you could still read it. All right. And then read it again, because what you want to hear is what this sounds like to somebody else, not what it sounds like to you, because you have that already in your head. And oftentimes when we get a very clear vision, not like it, of what we want to say, and then we don't hit that, don't reach that on let's say the paper, but the screen, we miss it. We miss the disconnection because we have up here so clearly. So the way to get around that is read it like it was somebody else's. All right. So that's coming up for the 24th. Okay. All right. So for this week, week 5, we are looking at sampling and what it is that makes a good sample. And when we say sample, we mean, going out there and collecting data, whether you're running a survey or you're counting things, or you're finding out how many documents about something is somewhere, or you're looking at statistics. Okay. And then we're taking a look at the difference between qualitative and quantitative methods. So there are 2 readings here, and then on the syllabus, these are just videos. It said, additional readings. It's not really readings on the syllabus. These are videos. Chapter 4 in Pauner and chapter 4 in Howard. Read both of those. And then to the questions, we're focusing on things like external validity. What is it? And, why is it important? Okay. So these are terms you should be able to define and just, all right, like that. And yeah, they'll appear on the midterm and final exam, but they're key components to empirical research. And they're things you should be asking about when you look at somebody's research. So for instance, I'm going to ask you a question about sample size, and sample size is represented by the letter N, which signifies number. All right. So, in terms of a study and study validity, what's the difference between a large sample size and a small sample size? And there are some instances in which a small sample size is the better fit for what you're doing. But why? You need to be able to go, because when you look at a study, and if they say, oh, we're setting it up this way, and we're going to evaluate this, and we're going to try to test this, but our sample size is 3, say individuals, you say, yeah, I don't think you're going to be able to get to the answers to the questions that you're asking with so few people. That's what you're looking for. Okay, so another question, and this is going to help you in writing your paper. I want you to discuss the 2, and remember from back before, that hypotheses and variables, they have some different names depending on where you're looking at. But what are the two hypotheses listed? And then what I would like you to do is to construct some hypotheses of your own. And you might be saying, well, construct them around what? Whatever you like. It could be related to your research paper. Now, remember, foundationally important. An hypothesis has three elements. Okay, it must contain these three elements because remember, an hypothesis. It's hard to say. Hypothesis. An hypothesis is testing the relationship between one event and the other. If it's not, then what you have is a research question in which you're just asking a query. So, does this go on or why does this go on? So hypothesis has three elements. Number one, it has at least two variables, okay, two events. Number two, it makes a prediction about those two variables. And number three, that is the effect of one on the other. And then number three, that prediction has a direction. Okay. So for instance, I think I mentioned before, I do a lot of backpacking, a lot of hiking, a lot of deep wilderness travel. And in the summertime, myself and a nephew of mine, one of my brother's grown sons, and sometimes my own sons, we go, each summer I take a trip, and sometimes these guys go with me, or sometimes I'm just on my own. We go out for a long wilderness trek. Okay. When I say, long-ish, 100 miles or more. So we're out for 7, 8, 9 days. 10, sometimes we've been out as long as 11 or 12 days on trail. And that is just with everything in our backs. Okay. But I hike all year round. Okay. That's my happy place, is out on the trail. All right. Now, in the city that I live in, the winters are, it gets a little cold, but not a lot of snow, but it does rain. And so what that means is now into the fall and the winter, when I go out hiking, frequently the trails are muddy. All right. So what if here's a hypothetical situation. What if I wanted to find out if there's any causal relationship between how little I wipe the mud off my boots before I come back into my house and my wife's bad mood by the end of the weekend? Just curious. Well, what might my hypothesis be? Let's look for those three elements. Two or more variables. So it might go something like this. What's the causal relationship between no boot wiping, variable one, and wife bad mood, variable two? That's the first element. All right, element number one. Number two, it's going to make a prediction about that relationship. So what if the prediction went something like this? The lack of boot wiping is positively correlated to a rise in bad mood wife. So I'm saying the less I wipe my boots, the more often my wife will be in a bad mood when I track mud across the living room rug. That's element number two. Now, element number three, it has a direction. What we're looking at, and you as a researcher get to decide what this direction is and what this relationship is. Okay, it's not set in stone. It's what you're investigating. So here's the direction. We're looking at what is the causal relationship between not wiping my boots and my wife's bad mood. Now we could look at the relationship of those two in the other direction. Let's say I was a jerk, which I'm not, but my wife's bad mood and me not wiping my boots. So my wife's in a bad mood. I'm like, oh, I'll show you. And I don't wipe the mud off my boots and I track it all over the living room. Okay, that's the phenomenon. We're investigating the phenomenon in the other direction. But in this case, we're not. The two elements. Boot wiping, wife, bad mood. Causal relationship, lack of boot wiping, increased wife, bad mood, direction. Boot wiping to wife, bad mood. That's a hypothesis. And it's a tremendous help in doing research, if you start with a good, solid hypothesis, if you can formulate a good hypothesis, and you write it out and then tweak it a little bit, okay? This will tell you, will direct you. It's not going to tell you anything. Will help guide you to what do you have to research by way of your literature review. Well, now back to that case, I might research by way of literature review, any known studies between husband bad behavior and wife bad mood. I mean, we'll just leave off boot wiping, let's just say, or careless behavior, or cleanliness of house or lack thereof, because often on the weekends, my wife spends a lot of time deep cleaning the house. All right. So I would look for that in my literature review. I might look for incidents of, see if there's actually any other direction of, spousal argument and non-productive behavior, like someone's in a bad mood, so the other person does something that's kind of jerky, like not wipe their boots. Okay. So having that hypothesis guides me towards what I should be looking at in terms of who's said what and who's done what before me. If I have to create a survey, that's also going to guide me, because I know that I need certain type of information. Like what? Well, let's say, how would I survey that? All right. And you want to be careful about biasing your subject. So if I told my wife, hey, just for research purposes, recreational research, my own personal interest, I'm going to test if there's any causal relationship between me not wiping my boots and you being in a bad mood. So I'll be doing that research over the next month. All right. Okay. All right. That's going to bias the outcome, because now already my wife knows I'm not going to be wiping my boots with the sole intent of figuring out, trying to figure out, if this puts her in a bad mood. So how would I design that? See, when you have a hypothesis, this helps you decide how to best design your study. Well, I might keep track, surreptitiously, secretly, of how many times in a month I don't wipe my boots. And I might intentionally not wipe my boots some weekends, and then intentionally wipe my boots on other weekends. So I have a comparison. And then I might say, to my wife, crafty researcher that I am, hey, I've constructed a survey. I wonder if you can help me out. Would you mind, taking this, looking at this, and then on Sunday night of each week for the next month, filling it out? And I have all kinds of questions on there designed to indicate what sort of mood my wife is in. Then I take the data of how many times I didn't wipe my boots and I did wipe my boots. And then I take the data about the mood my wife is in at the end of Sunday. And then using some math, I establish if there's a causal relationship between no boot wiping and wife bad mood. That is how having a good hypothesis helps you design your methodology. In this case, starting with the survey instrument, what should it look like, and what should it contain, and what should it not contain? It should not contain instructions that says, hey, I want to find out if my never wiping my muddy boots, actually puts you in a bad mood. Okay. So start with a good, solid hypothesis, and this is going to help guide you through your research process, your methodology. All right. Okay. And then finally, you're going to be asked after reading chapter 4 and chapter 4, and spend, I want you to spend time getting your head around this hypothesis business. All right. Because this is so central to research. Okay. Then I want you to discuss the differences between qualitative and quantitative research methodologies. All right. That is, those are the two big categories. And that, again, it's just, you should be able to identify, if I give you an example of a research method or a research outcome, that is the kind of data that was collected, and then I ask you, was this data produced by a qualitative methodology or quantitative methodology? Boom. You are Johnny or Janie on the spot, and you know exactly which one of the two that it is. All right. Okay, everybody. That is it for this week. All right. I will post a video, later today or maybe even later this week. I got to be honest with you. I'm not feeling well. I wonder if I have, I certainly have a cold, but I wonder what sort of a cold is it? Is it the Rona? Has it got me? Who knows? I will post that later on. But if you have questions, please send them to me or catch me during my office hour. Okay. All right, everybody. I think about you. I pray about you, and take care. Have a great, great week. And I will see you on Canvas. Bye-bye.